Welcome everyone, this is Tactical Lich here, and today we are back to the battlefields of Total War Warhammer 3 with an Ogre versus Tzeentch battle. Now, after patch 1.3 dropped, basically 90% of games I played are Ogre Kingdoms, so that means I have a lot of Ogre replays, and that is why we're doing one today. Now, after that patch 1.3 nerfing the stonehorns significantly, giving them 15% less missile resistance, you need something else to handle the Tzeentch missile spam these days. So instead of massive stonehorns expensive and not quite enough in numbers, instead we'll be picking up the Ironguts with their heavy armor, using that armor to mitigate the non-armor piercing missiles of all these horrors. And combined with them, we have a whole bunch of Ogre Bulls with Iron Fist to rush, mixed in with a bunch of Nobblers as a bit of chaff to stuff up enemy units. And at the back, we have a whole lot of Nobbler Trappers. These sneaky little gits can actually do some really good damage against the lightly armored Tzeentch infantry, providing massive volume of fire with their 160 models. At the back, we have a bunch of mobility in the form of Saber-Tusk packs and also the Mournfang cavalry with great weapons. And that's basically it for the main army, with the leadership of Slaughtermaster coming in with the Maul, extra ingredients, as well as the Troll Guts, a really crucial spell in sustaining my unit here. Now for my opponent, Tzeentch player here, we have a whole bunch of blue horrors in the front, backed up by pink horrors, a really standard missile spam frontline. And in this guys, we have a bunch of Furies, backed up by a bunch of Screamers, and the Knights of Immolation, the Doom Knights of Tzeentch, who does have some bombardment abilities with the Searing Torrent. In addition, there is some brutal armor-piercing firepower in the form of an Exalted Flamer in the back. As for leadership, we have an Exalted Lord of Change here with the Lord of Metal, bringing only Final Transmutation for spell, as well as a bunch of Chaos Fury summons. And that's basically it for army builds. Now let's get the battle started. Without any long-range sniping option, the Tzeentch army didn't bring blue fire, and the Ogre army did not bring any artillery. Both armies will be charging forward, meeting each other in the middle of the battlefield. Of course, the Tzeentch army will be hanging back a bit due to their missile advantage, so my Iron Fist Ogre Bulls will be charging ahead, raising up their Iron Fist on their left hand, trying to block up the missiles as they charges in. With the Ogres first among enemy lines, they'll actually be shielding the Nobblers from enemy missile fire instead of the other way round. Despite Nobblers are supposed to be the meat shield and chaff of the Ogre army, they did mitigate some of that damage, but the volume of fire from all these horrors is just way too much, and the Ogre Bulls are already taking massive damage due to their lack of armor. While the Ogre Bulls here trying to go for a flank and get into the pink horrors are spotted by the Knights of Immolation, who dive down using their charge bonus to dish out the ping, and relying on the Tzeentch shield, they'll be blocking most of that counter-attack damage, taking minimal losses. On the left flank, the Ogre Kingdoms had a bit more success due to the Nobblers getting into the front line and the Iron Fist here not being stopped by any Doom Knight. They'll be charging straight into the pink horrors, dragging them into melee, disabling their firepower, and then these Ironguts will be charging straight in to shut down even more and more blue horrors and pink horrors. They actually walked through a unit on the flank and go straight for the pink horrors in the middle, who are cross-firing at other units, trying to concentrate the forces here to focus down all these Tzeentch infantry, while the mobility will be charging in from behind, finally getting into combat, hoping to shut down one of the most devastating firepower, that is the Exalted Flamer, who dish out massive pain against my Ironguts here. Unfortunately, they will be routed, being chased off by the Screamers, but my heavy cavalry is here, dumpstering all these blue horrors, and with the help of the Saber-Tusk packs. Now the Exalted Flamer is still very much active. They will still be a massive pain in the butt for my Mournfang cavalry, so I need to move over some of my mobility to shut them down. As you can see here, already dishing a massive pain against my heavy cavalry. So these Saber-Tusk packs would be moving over, trying to shut it down with their weapon strength, but my opponent, a really nice response with the mobility and summon, dumping down a bunch of Chaos Furies on the battlefield and diving straight into the Saber-Tusk pack, trying to rout them off. While the rest of my units are mostly stuck on blue horrors, pink horrors, and whatnot, unable to get into the engagement in time, but thankfully, finally I've finished off all the Tzeentch infantry on the middle, and now the Ironguts are freed up, able to move over into the right flank of my army and start dumpstering these blue horrors and surrounding the Exalted Lord of Change. The Exalted Lord of Change responded with a Final Transmutation, hoping to catch all my units with that damaging spell, but instead my units moved out of the way by charging into the Tzeentch units. Now they'll be striking down those horrors left, right, and center with their giant metal clubs. Now, the warp fire from the Exalted Flamethrower did manage to rout off my Mournfang cavalry, but they still have quite a bit of health and they will be returning next. So I'll be pushing in more Nobblers, Saber Tuskpack in a desperate attempt to shut down this Exalted Flamer finally, but the Knights of Immolation charging straight in, and now they will be blocking off my attempt to shut down the Exalted Flamer, and instead they themselves will be taking some decent damage from the armor piercing of these Ironguts. As such, the Exalted Lord of Change will be jumping over here to help out, as the rest of the horrors are basically finished off by my combination of my Slaughtermaster and Ironguts, as well as some regrouped and now healing Mournfang Cavalry. On the left flank of my army, Nobbler Trappers are actually successfully trading against the pink horrors and blue horrors, actually managing to finish them off, while there are some returning Ogre Bulls trying to get back into the fight and finish off the pink horrors. Over here, the Nobblers and Saber Tuskpack being pushed off by the combination of Knights of Immolation as well as the Tzeentch Exalted Lord of Change. As a result, the Exalted Flamer will be surviving in this melee combat as I pour more and more melee units into the engagement. This would have been a really nice juicy blob for the final transmutation, but I assume the magic isn't there for the Tzeentch army just yet, or simply the spell hasn't gone off cooldown. Either ways, I'll be using this to my advantage, concentrating the weight of Ogres to crush the Tzeentch resistance. The Nobbler Trappers will be dishing out the pain against the Screamers of Tzeentch since they do have low armor and I still have a lot of ammo left on these Trappers, while the Ironguts will be tied down by a bunch of Chaos Furies, allowing the Knights of Immolation, the Exalted Flamer, and the Exalted Lord of Change to retreat from this engagement, and then the Exalted Flamer will be dishing out the pain with the rest of its ammo, burning my Mournfang Cavalry into cinders. I'll soon pull out some Mournfang Cavalry to chase down the Flamer while my major forces are stuck against a Screamer. On the far side, we have the Chaos Furies here trying to finish off my remaining Nobbler Trappers and is doing quite successfully so, due to them being a dedicated melee unit, while my Trappers are merely a missile units with crap melee stats. Now at the back, the Mournfang Cavalry attempted for a desperate charge against the Exalted Flamer is routed by the Exalted Lord of Change, and the Screamers now retreating from this blob fight will be chasing off the Mournfang Cavalry as well. Obviously, the Tzeentch player wants to take some time to reorganize and chase off my routing units, but that also gives me time to regroup my forces, consolidate them, top up their health again with a bit more Troll Gut healing magic. So the Ironguts will be consolidating around the Slaughtermaster using the extra ingredients to get back more magic, while the Nobbler Trappers will be firing at the Screamers of Tzeentch, hoping to dish out as much damage as possible, chipping away their health, while the rest of my Nobblers, who are a bit scattered around the battlefield, will be running back towards the middle to reorganize. Anyways, let's fast forward now as we are going into a bit of a waiting phase here. My opponent chasing off my Mournfang Cavalry and the Knights of Immolation as well, chasing off my Nobbler Trappers, taking no damage in return due to that Tzeentch shield existing. At this point, I have saved out enough Winds of Magic, healing up these Ironguts with an upgraded Troll Guts, basically healing them up all the way to full health, almost at least, since they did lose a single unit model, but that should be enough to recover most of their health. Now let us fast forward a bit more. As the Tzeentch army is taking its time to go for an engagement here, Exalted Flamer charging in, Screamers as well, hoping to tie down all my units into a blob for that final transmutation upgraded version, but unfortunately only catching one of my Irongut units as the other one has charged out of the area and now surrounding and beating down the Exalted Flamer. My Slaughtermaster as well did not get caught by the final transmutation and is now charging into combat, trying to drag down all the Screamers of Tzeentch with their anti-large, truly a major threat against my Ironguts in the late game. And with them gone, and me losing a bunch of my Nobbler Trappers as well as these Ironguts, that's going to be an interesting trade here, but the balance of power is in my favor right now, probably because my units are simply more healthy with healing. Nobbler Trappers trying to use up all their ammo before being eventually routed by the Tzeentch army, while the Exalted Flamer just kind of standing here, not doing really much, so I'll be dumping in a bunch of Nobbler Trappers and Ironguts, trying to catch him right here, but he'll be floating away. Although he does have that 50 speed, the charge animation on my Ironguts did manage to catch him. It tries desperately to run away, but the escort of Ironguts will be firmly by its side. Though my opponent using the Knights of Immolation to really finish off my Ironguts here, and the Nobbler Trappers here, slightly separated from my main army, is going to be quite vulnerable to enemy charges. Now let us go back into fast forward as we are slowly damaging the Exalted Flamer. Another final transmutation is dropped, and this time catching my main units. The Knights of Immolation charges straight into the back, silencing the trappers with the heavy armor and charge bonus, as the Exalted Lord of Change is busy dealing with the Ironguts, but a heal comes down mitigating that final transmutation, sustaining their hit points as my Slaughtermaster finishing off the Exalted Flamer. The Knights of Immolation is slowly but surely dragging down all these Noblite trappers, simply being more elite and heavily armored. But the trappers aren't going down without a fight. They are still shooting, and with every single projectile hitting these Knights of Immolation, they will be taking some irreversible losses as they do not have healing in this Tzeentch build. And the Ironguts here being absolutely healthy without any flaming effects to limit their healing. They'll be charging straight into the backs of the bunch of Knights of Immolation, surrounding the Exalted Lord of Change with Metal Lore. At this point, my opponent probably couldn't squeeze out any more magic, and even if he can, he doesn't have the cooldown for it. And so I was able to surround the Exalted Lord of Change, give him a proper beating, and with the mass of these Ironguts pinning him down, he can't even pull out of this engagement. Without any means to turn this engagement around, the Tzeentch player will admit defeat, and the Ogre boys are having chicken wings for dinner tonight. Now that we are at the post-battle screen, let's have a look at the army performances, with the Ironguts carrying the game with some massive damage done to the Tzeentch army, as their heavy armor allowed them to mitigate a lot of non-armor piercing damage from the melee attacks of the Horrors as well as the Knights of Immolation, while their massive weapon strength can do some decent work against even the heaviest of armor from the Doom Knights, while the Pink Horrors and Blue Horrors just get pummeled by their massive weapon strength as well. Though of course there's one Irongut being blasted by the Exalted Flamer, didn't get much value. Same goes for the Ogre Bulls with Iron Fists, as their lack of armor means that they take a lot of damage from the crossfire of these Tzeentch Horrors, though their Iron Fist did help them to absorb a bunch of that ammo with that missile block chance. Now the Saber Tusk packs didn't really earn back a lot of value. They tried their damnedest to shut down the Tzeentch range component, but in the end the Knights and the Screamers as well as the crossfire from the Horrors is just a bit too much. The hidden MVP of the Ogre army is definitely these Noblite trappers getting a lot of kills and earning some solid value, one of them 750 gold value, while they themselves only costing around 450 gold. They are capable of dishing out some immense damage with their volume of fire with a lot of scrap metal projectiles with 160 unit models, and in the end they can actually trade pretty well in a ranged engagement against all these Pink Horrors and Blue Horrors. And that is exactly what happened. Now for the Nobblers here, well, their job is to absorb ammo, and that's exactly what they did, while the Mournfang Cavalry being blasted by the Exalted Flamer, they themselves didn't do a lot of work today. As for the Slaughtermaster here, doing some solid job with 1,169 gold value earned, a combination of healing and also damage capacity on this Ogre Lord makes him always a solid choice. Now for the Tzeentch army here, we have the Knights of Immolation earning some solid value but not quite enough to earn back their own cost, while the Exalted Flamer doing a solid job in blasting away at my heavily armored key units, including the Mournfang Cavalry and some of my Ironguts. Now the Screamers of Tzeentch, their anti-large armor piercing makes them always good against the Ogre engagement, but their lack of armor does make them rather vulnerable to the Noblite trappers. And the Pink Horrors, Blue Horrors, they basically got ran over by my numerous Ogre frontline with a combination of Nobblers and Iron Fist and Ogre Bulls. They just don't have the width in formation to hold back my advance. I do have to say a great use of mobility on my opponent here, using the Chaos Furies and the Knights of Immolation, shutting down some of my flank advances, and the Exalted Lord of Change jumping around the battlefield, hopping between unit to unit using its mobility to the army's benefit. There was some pretty nice micro there. And yeah, that's basically it for today. I hope you enjoyed this battle, and if you do, remember to hit the like and subscribe down below to get notified whenever there's a new video. I'll be doing more battle replays like this one, wild meme army builds, and tips and strategies for Total War Warhammer multiplayer. And if you have any replays that you want to showcase, feel free to drop by my Discord or send me an email with the replay file attached. I'll be sure to check them out. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tzeentch, signing out.